For our last but not least speaker, Rick Panfil arrived at Oberlin College with Sodexo Dining Services as executive chef and was promoted to catering director in 1997. Rick joined Bon Appetit in 2001 when Bon Appetit was selected as a food service vendor at Oberlin College. In 2003, Rick was promoted to the general manager of dining services for Oberlin College. Yeah.
Probably one of the smartest things Oberlin ever did was select Bon Appetit as their food service vendor. The reason for that is that we have a passion as a company for food. And Bon Appetit started in 1985 as a small catering company, but El Baccio had this dream of having real food created in fresh ways using real chefs and not using bases and foods that were bought on commodities and frozen foods. And the story goes that he actually had, he wrote checks in advance to farmers because he didn't believe that he was really going to buy foods from them. So even though his profit margin was low, he wrote checks to them and they were like, you mean you're really going to buy our products from us? Because there's this disconnect, I think Dave hit on this too, from the grower to the buyer to the consumer. And sometimes there's a mistrust because of the systems in which we live in. There's a story, and I'll change the names to protect the innocent. Farmer Kime had a storefront, and every day Megan would come in and buy produce from Farmer Kime and also some fresh eggs. And one day she comes in, he's out of eggs. And the eggs come in a carton, and there's no more cartons. So she goes up to Farmer Kime and says, Farmer Kime, there's no more eggs. Do you know when your next shipment will be coming in? He says, oh, I've got them right out back here. And she says, out back? And he opens up the door and she sees all these chickens running around. She goes, what are those? He goes, chickens. He goes, no, I don't want those eggs. I want the eggs that were in this carton here. There's a disconnect that she didn't know that's where the egg came from. A true story. Anyway, so I think there's a disconnect between what we traditionally know about food and where it comes from, and truly people don't know where their foods come from. They go to Giant Eagle or Heinen's and the food's just there. So what Fidel wanted was to create this dream. And the dream was to be a premier on-site restaurant company. And restaurant meaning using chefs to create dishes made from scratch. So cooking their own stocks, roasting them from bones, and then also buying fresh produce and trying to use as many products as he can from this, what he considered a 150-mile radius, which was established later based on a drive to a farmer or a artisan, and then a drive back, create the dish, and within 48 hours have it presented at his catering company. And we still use those same principles today. We also want to make sure that it's, when you cook with foods that are grown locally or harvested locally or produced locally, typically it's going to taste better. Like if you guys ever see a real egg, it's bright orange. It's not this yellow egg, and it stands up. And typically, when you make like a hollandaise and you add butter to it and things like that, and you don't use a fresh egg, it's like a really yellow. But if you use a fresh egg when you make hollandaise, it's got a pale orange to it, and the flavor is much better. Anyway, so he wanted to make sure that all of us that work for Bon Appetit hold these principles to be true today. And so the 150-mile radius is what we determine as local. And we also determine local anyone that's under a 5 million profitability within a year. The reason for that is that typically, once you get into like 8 million or 10 million, you're doing a little bit more business than is sustainable within that village or that town. We also have kitchen principles that I was just talking about, and these are throughout the years, I would say from 2001 till now, some of these principles were established. Humane certified cage-free eggs. Fidel tells another story of when he was at Washington University, and a student came up to him and said, where do you buy your eggs from? And he said, at the time where we were getting our eggs from. And she said, well, have you ever seen battery cages? And he's like, well, not really. And then she showed him a picture of battery cage chickens. And it's actually no bigger than probably this laptop right here, where chickens live their entire life. And so he was committed to having, buying eggs that were humanely raised and that were certified humane. And so when we say certified humane, there's different certificates for certification for humane. AWA is one of them. Anyway, so that's something that we did. Seafood Watch, approved fish. So Monterey Bay Aquarium comes out with a Seafood Watch guide. Typically it has a good, better, and best ratio on it, meaning their how they're caught, if they are endangered species. And we also, for climate purposes, we stopped purchasing any air freighted seafood. So we also look for, local fish as best as we can, or fish that is Seafood Watch approved. Cooked from scratch, so we have all of our stocks are house made, all of our meats are fresh made in-house. Trans fat free cooking principles. Anything that we make in-house has to be trans fat free. Our milk and yogurt are from cows that are not treated any artificial bovine or RGVH free milk. This is kind of our role in the since the inception of some of these kitchen principles, and you can see kind of the years in that they developed. In 1999 is when the Farm to Forks program was established, and again, that's the 150-mile radius. And then we also talked about artisans for 150 miles and 5 million under a year. This is the story of Ed and Betty Frank, who own a farm. And when Bon Appetit first approached them, and any farmer that we're going to do business with, we try to visit their farm to look at their integrated pest management systems. Are they really growing it, without saying it's Tuesday and we're going to do pesticide today? So we kind of look at their farm to know exactly how they're growing their products. Well, Ed and Betty Frank had a potato farm, and they were taking potatoes to various farmers markets. And Randy Demers, our VP, said to them, "What if we were to buy all the potatoes that you could grow for us?" And again, it was kind of like that. You mean you're going to buy all the potatoes that we can grow? And it was like, really? And we said, yeah, as many as you can grow for us. So they stopped schlepping around all of these potatoes that they were going to farmers market, and they had one stop, and actually there were 70,000 pounds of potatoes that were handpicked by Ed and his family, and Case Western Reserve bought all their potatoes. And we also bought some too, I believe, at Oberlin too, but they were a little bit far for them to come. And that's Jim O'Brien, the general manager out at Case. So that's just one success story that we have. Again, we only purchase grass-fed meats without the use of chemical fertilizers, pesticides, hormones, or antibiotics. All of our ground beef is certified humane that we use for our hamburger. This is out at the Case Western Reserve Farm, another partnership that we have out there, similar to what we have out at the NAC. And then there's Rainbow Farms, that's another part of the CSA program, and that we buy different vegetables from also. Then SIF program. So at Oberlin, we're always looking at the food shed, and how can we take the bounty of harvest in the peak times and extend that, if we can, into the season of winter. And one program that we looked at, we tried it at Oberlin a couple times before SIF came in, of freezing some strawberries, blueberries, peaches, and corns and things like that. Well, the SIF program, what it did was it took farmers who were growing the green beans and who were growing Brussels sprouts and strawberries, taking that product to SIF, having them flash freeze it for us, put it in boxes, send it off to Cerna, then Cerna would deliver it for us. So it took an investment of getting this started, going to the farmers and asking them if they'd be interested in growing these products for us, which also gave them a dedicated income that they knew that they were going to get. And then also it provided us with extending our bounty of harvest into the winter months. So over the past 3 years, we've been using the program for green beans, Brussels sprouts, strawberries, blueberries, corn, and various products that we use in our cafes at both Oberlin College and at Case Western. This was in 2010, 2010, we had more than 25,000 pounds of produce. So in 2009, so we're a buyer, right? And so we can buy a lot of food for the colleges and also B&I accounts that we have. So there's Oberlin College, there's Case Western Reserve, Parker Hannafin, the Market Downtown, Otterbein College. So there's all these spend areas that we have a lot of money tied up into our food dollars. If you just look at Case Western Reserve and Oberlin alone, right now at Oberlin we have about 27% of our food dollars goes to local buying. In 2009, if we target, and as a target, all Bon Appetit accounts have to have 20% of their food dollars go to local vendors. That's an embedded, mandated corporate initiative that we have. So if you take 20% of $23.6 million over Oberlin and between Oberlin and Case Western Reserve, the two accounts, that equates to approximately $4.72 million in local dollars that are spent. And actually, we both achieved in 2009 about $6.3 million, or 26.7%. So when we look at it at the Oberlin Food Hub experiment, let's say, Bon Appetit, Oberlin College, Case Western Reserve plays a big role in that for purchasing. And we're able to leverage that purchasing buying power to help create this food hub of having 70% of the local foods grown around Oberlin. And it's kind of exciting time because, like in the beginning, and what Dave Sokol was kind of saying too, there's a disconnect between the farmer, the grower, the buyer, and then the consumer. And what this does, it brings everybody together, and it helps to enrich a community. And if we can do it here at Oberlin, another community might do it. If you look at even 100 years ago, you would have farmer X growing green beans and maybe some corn, farmer Y growing the wheat, and the two of them would get together and they would barter and bargain for their crops. And we've lost that in this economy in which we're in, where we can just go to the McDonald's or just go to Walmart and food's there, and people have lost this disconnect about how food is grown, how it's raised, and the hard work and dedicated work it takes to make that happen. And that's why the average age of a farmer is 61 years old. That's why you see half of the farmers getting out of the business. It's hard work, and there's not a profitability in that. Just this past week, I think that there was a vote about the Farm Bill going to the Senate, and a lot of what was gained a few years back, it was lost when it went to the representative side. I'm not sure how it turned out, the vote on, I think it was Monday or Tuesday. So anyway, there's a lot of work to be done. Oberlin's part of that. It's a rich community that wants to see things happen. Always been engaged. We have the college, the students, very active in local foods movements. We just signed an agreement with the college and with students about the Real Food Challenge. It's not necessarily about local foods. It's also about humanely raised foods and organic foods. But that goal was that by the year 2020, 40% of their real food commitment would be purchased through the college, which was a big to-do and a big goal for us to sign. So anyway, as a buyer, I think we have an important role and a role that we're looking forward to the challenge in the years to come. So I'll open it up to any questions you guys might have. Yes. Hi.
Do I understand you as a buyer, and maybe I missed it, what percentage, if there is a percentage, are you buying directly from farmer grower or going through a broker and still accessing local?
Yeah, no. What we do is we reach out to local artisans, and they could be a bakery maker, a bakery. They could be someone that raises hogs and pigs, someone that grows tomatoes, and someone that grows chicken. So we use Gibson's for our bakery products, and he's local. We use New Creation Farms for our pigs, and he's in Chardon, so he's considered local within that 150 miles. We purchase about 70% of our pork usage from him.
He's raising the hogs.
He's raising the hogs for us, yeah. And he's going to be looking at some possible cattle too. Then we reach out to Herzl's in Toledo area, who packages the Di Fratelli brand tomatoes. And we reach out to them as part of our local. And then we reach out to the NAC as part of our local fruits and vegetables. We reach out to City Fresh to drive down to the Amish area in Holmes County and things like that to pick up various produce from the Amish to bring back to our facility to use. Within Bon Appetit and within any large company, you do have, specific food cost or, cost of goods guidelines and also procurement guidelines. When we made the deal with Herzl's, we actually went out and visited, because they have growers that grow the tomatoes for them. We visited those growers to see how they were growing their tomatoes, how were they using pesticides, what was their water runoff going into. We purchased our chicken from Gerber's Chicken, so we went out and visited all the farmers that grow their chickens for them. And how were they being raised? Were they in the battery cages? Were they what we would call free-range chickens? Obviously, we've been to Jones Farm. And we also, commit to helping out startup companies. I know that with Ed and Betty Frank, they committed so many dollars to help them on their farm. We've committed some dollars to the NAC in the past to build a hoop house and help out with City Fresh in buying a truck. So there's various ways in which we partner with various growers or artisans to help them either get started and to help us out by bringing in local fresh foods. And what we found is that by doing that, you create relationships, and then that opens a door to another relationship, which may open a door to another relationship, which is similar to how SIFT even got started. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah, when you say Jones Farm, is that the three nonprofits?
Yeah, that's the NAC. It's George Jones Memorial Farm, and also known as the New Agrarian Center.
There's farmers over near Milan, I think their name's Jones, they run three nonprofit agencies, the Veggie U, the Chef's Garden, the Culinary Vegetable Institute.
Yep. Yeah, we also buy from them too.
Is their name Jones?
It is, yeah. Farmer Jones. Yeah. But more I think it's known for its Culinary Vegetable Institute also. Yep. Yes, sir.
I'm curious about the barriers to achieving, whatever percentage is the total potential, might be 100% or 80% or somewhere in there. But what kind of barriers are you hitting right now? And
Yeah, that's a good question. The barriers are, and a lot of it has to do with the relationship that you have with the farmer. But some of the barriers might be, is the trust there between you and the artisan or the farmer? If I say I'm going to buy all the potatoes that you can grow, the farmer might go, well, I don't see that really happening. And then the other barrier might be the distribution. How am I going to get potatoes from Ed and Betty Frank, who live on the other side of Cleveland, out to Oberlin? And that was a barrier. And I think they came out maybe like 2 or 3 times, but after that it wasn't worth their time bringing it out to us, and we had other vendors that could help us out locally. So creating that trust, creating the distribution. SIFT was a project. At first, SIFT was storing their product at their location and delivering it from there to us. Well, we already have a produce company named Cerna, and so the product went from SIFT to Cerna. They have a large warehouse freezer where they can keep the product, and then when we need it, we just call them and have it brought out to us. Right now, we're in conversations with Shagbark Mill and Creek down in the Athens area, and one of the problems there is also distribution, but we're working through those barriers. Right now we're carrying their chips. Hopefully next year we're going to be starting some of their beans and things like that. So I think, distribution, the trust, the commitment to staying with it. Let's say I only ordered once a month from Jones Farm. Then he's going to say, it's not really worth my time bringing out that product to you if it's just once a week. So our commitment to Jones Farm is that you grow for us this amount of crops, and we'll buy all that you can grow for us, along with helping you to support your CSA programs and things like that. So it's a partnership. Yeah.
Not to be the dark cloud in the room, but we've had 2 really awful summers for growing things in the last 2 years, and I'm wondering if Bon Appetit is thinking about developing contingency plans or other plans for how climate change is going to affect local food systems.
Let me give you a story. Okay. So I talked to, I think it's Farmer Hubble, and he was down in Holmes County, and I asked him if he could grow tomatoes for us. And at the time, he was an Amish farmer, and he was growing flowers. And it was much more lucrative for him to grow flowers than it was tomatoes, because it was, you know, he could sell the flowers like that, and he can grow them pretty much in the hoop houses that he had, and the greenhouses that he had. But I asked him if he could try it out. And so working with Carl Knopp and Farmer Hubble, he decided to grow some tomatoes for us. And he grew a lot of tomatoes for us in his greenhouse. And farmers, Amish farmers are pretty direct. He called me, I think it was around the end of November, beginning of December, and he says there's no more sun. And so there was no more sun for him to grow the tomatoes, but we were still able to get tomatoes at the time from our Florida suppliers. So I don't know if I'm answering your question totally properly, but if local farmers are growing carrots for us and they don't, and we're going to buy all their carrots up, or they have a crop failure, let's say they have a crop failure, we're still able to get carrots from our other suppliers. Unfortunately, those suppliers might be from Mexico or from California or from Texas, but you know, that's, you know, we have students to feed and we have to do what we have to do. We'd much rather buy the farmers that are locals product first, but if they have a bad crop or the climate change interrupts their growing season, then we also have other avenues to go through to get products. So. Yes.
Hello. I actually have 2 questions. I'm sorry I missed your presentation, but I think I've seen it before.
Probably.
So here's question number 1. I heard you say that you use Cerna and Sons at the storage facility.
Right, we have.
Freezer and cooler. So, for instance, one of the main concerns with urban growers is that, you know, to be able to protect the product, to have the wherewithal to keep it for you. So is that something that is a practice? Is it just, you just have to mention it because that was something that happened a one-time kind of thing, or?
No, what you have to do is you have to figure out a way when you're, this was a flash freezing process, and they were flash freezing a lot of product for us. That was going to be used throughout the various colleges that we operate. And so we needed a large storage area, and Certain & Sons has that large storage area to store the product until we need it.
Okay.
The idea here in Oberlin, which hopefully will come to pass, is that if it's possible to create a food processing center that has the ability to flash freeze, that then we can store here at Oberlin and then distribute to the restaurants, to the college, and to other areas of the community, products that would be flash frozen. And it's, you know, there's the Athens project that's at AceNet that's happening down there. I don't know if they have flash freezing down there or not, but they have a kitchen incubator where the community can come in and make products, and they also have an area where people can come in and buy products. So that's kind of like the dream, part of the dream of this food hub in Oberlin, is to have something like that to extend the life bounty of the season to carry us through. And you really need something like that. When I was having my discussions with Brad Massey and such, you really need something like that if you're looking at a 70% local food hub distribution center and 70% of that product grown within the area.
So let me be a little more fair to you. I'm from Cleveland, and so currently in Cleveland we don't have a space like that, but I know that Cerner and Son is out of Cleveland. So the second question kind of relates to this first question. You said there are various ways to help start up our locals. Like for instance, I know that you purchased a truck or assisted City Crash, and the hoop house that was built out at Case Farm, and different things like that. Aid to this question is, how do we know what those different things are? Are they case by case, or is there like a website that kind of shares all of what has happened before, so we're not trying to recreate a wheel, or is it possible to create a wheel? And then the last part of that question would be that since there isn't anything like that in Cleveland, would that be something that your company would look at to try to invest in order to get Cuyahoga County and neighboring Geauga County farmers to have a place where they took the produce and it was properly stored and available for your systems in the greater Cleveland area? It's a big question.
Yeah, it is.
I could probably summarize it. I just wanted
Yeah,
to give you.
I can't answer all those questions. Some of those questions are outside of my league, if you will.
Okay.
There's other people that probably could answer that question much better than I can. What we try to do as a company is to create relationships with artisans or farmers. And once that relationship, and they also are committed to some of our practices in which we want to make sure that they have. So once those relationships are started and those partnerships are begun, then the investment, I think, from a company standpoint, would be much easier as long as it's going to be a long-term relationship. Part of the relationship that we have with the NAC at Oberlin is that we run the dining services for the college, right? And so our commitment to helping the NAC out was twofold. We'll help you out, but also grow products for us. And that created a partnership and discussion point. I think there are websites out there that have a lot of information. Someone mentioned the Will Allen in Milwaukee earlier.
Only referring to yours.
Oh, okay. We do have a website. I don't know if it speaks to all of our initiatives with all of our partners that we have. And that website is bamco.com. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Little question, just to build on that last question. BAMCO also provides food for Cleveland area universities and high schools too, right?
Yeah. University, the CSU, Cleveland State. Yeah. I'm sorry. Case Western. And then we have the market downtown also. Yeah. And we have partnerships with the Case Farm, it's called. There's Green City Growers that just opened up in Cleveland that we're working with. So, there's a bunch of different partnerships that are out there that we're working with also. So, Brian, right? Yeah.
So there are two kitchen projects planned in the Cleveland area. One's on the CSU campus. I think they're still determining what they're going to do with that. Carolyn Bremer and ECDI are working on that one. And then there's one at Maggie Fitzpatrick's working on the Hot City project. So, either one of those are up. One of them's quite a bit farther along because it already exists. The other one's still in the development stage.
With that, there's storage as much as it is to like the kitchen,
The CSU one's,
processing type center.
yeah, it's definitely more like catering side kitchen. I haven't talked to them in a couple of weeks on that. But the other one, there is potential for storage space. I don't know where they're at. Yeah, the Hot City kitchen definitely have thoughts in regards to storage space.
So, two questions, and I'm sorry, I didn't get to see your presentation, but is there somewhere a list of produce items that Appetit would like to have local farmers grow? That's question one. And question two is there sort of a minimum, you don't want to buy 1 quart of cherry tomatoes, so what's the sort of minimum size
Yeah.
in terms of what you can handle?
Yeah, that's a tough question. The reason for that is that we go through a lot of produce, right, at Oberlin. But when we talk to farmers or artisans to possibly grow for us, we're also looking at the possibility of helping us out at Case Western. So there's a partnership between Bon Appetit accounts that if I'm looking for milk, let's say, or dairy at Oberlin, we also want to look at dairy, the possibility of carrying it over to Case Western, the Market, Parker Hannafin, and other accounts. And we work with farmers on an individual basis, like let's say Miller's Apple Orchard. We buy all his apples that he can get, but that's specific to Oberlin because he's a little bit closer to Oberlin than he is to Case. And we buy all his variety of apples. Jones Farm, we just had a meeting with Nick about what we would like for him to grow for us. And we look at, carrots, potatoes, celery, onions, those types of things that we go through a lot of. The cherry tomatoes, the lettuces, and things like that, that's kind of broken down, if you will, maybe to Oberlin, but we also think about other places too. So it would just be a discussion to have with the farmer or the grower and what he's currently growing or she's currently growing and see what the feasibility is and the possibilities are. We already have established, like with City Fresh and Jones Farm, they supply us with a lot of product already. And so if we were to add another farmer on top of what they're already giving us, we might be knocking out a farmer that we're already buying from. So we have to be really careful with that also, that we're not taking from one just because we want to add another, the same product.
Right. So how does the farmer then do that? How does
They come see us.
Okay.
They come see us, and we also visit their farm. We don't buy tomato. If someone comes in on our back dock and say, I've got a pallet of tomatoes, you interested? We don't buy those because we don't know how they were grown, where they came from, and all those types of things. We like to visit the farms, get the relationship going, and then work out the deals, if you will, that after that relationship starts. And there's certain criteria in which we have to have them be approved for. There's a health and safety list that we go through, all those types of things. Right.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.